Welcome to a very special edition of Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. I'm Ryan Drury, of course, and joined by Clarkey here, and I've been somehow roped in to hosting the first segment of the show, even though I am on vacation.
You're the
for my
host.
birthday.
You're the host
Clarkey,
of this show.
explain yourself.
You're the host of this show.
Yes.
And, Doigie's going to come on, and I'll host the second half. But you can't come on and not be the host. You're the host. Whenever you're on this show, you are the host. And by the way, where are you?
I am in beautiful Port Moody, British Columbia.
Okay.
Not very far away from the ocean, which I will be in later, and getting salty, and surrounded by gorgeous mountains and wildlife. It's quite an experience.
What's the wildest wildlife you've seen out there?
Well, there's a lot of bears.
Have you seen a lot of bears?
We've not seen a bear this stay yet.
Okay.
But obviously there's plenty of wildlife in the sea. There's whales around, there's seals,
Okay. Yeah.
There's plenty of stuff. And I'm also here, right? I'm a bit of an animal, so
you are. You're kind of wild. Yeah, that would have been great for me to take pictures out there. Thanks for the invite. Sue and I are going to Calgary in September, and we're hoping to see a bear or two. Now, it's one of those catch-22s. You hope to see a bear to take a picture, but you hope you're safe when you're seeing the bear.
Absolutely. I think you'll be in luck. You're gonna be able to track a bear down pretty easily.
How do you do that? How?
Well, they're just around, dude, and they like to kind of travel near the towns and stuff. They want people's garbage. So, and speaking of that, I mean, how about those signings by the Leafs, eh?
Well, I thought you were going to all of a sudden start with the Blue Jays talking about garbage, but
Wow.
What do you mean? Like, they improved their D. Chris Tanev's a pretty good defenseman, and they're better now defensively than they were a week ago.
I don't disagree, but that was a joke, obviously. I love Chris Tanev. I like everything. Clearly, like, it was a thing where everyone knows they wanted him last year, especially heading toward the trade deadline, and this continuing narrative of Calgary and Ken King and the group over there not wanting to trade with old Brad Tree continues to be a narrative. And now they went out and got him, and they showed some initiative, and I think that's what ended up drawing Tanev into signing what I actually think is a pretty team-friendly deal. The term you don't necessarily love, but we know that the Leafs are able to make guys disappear when they're 38, 39. Will it turn into a Mark Giordano situation? I don't know. But for right now, at least for the first half of the deal, they're getting a really quality defenseman here. Like, you're looking at a guy that is highly regarded for the way that he protects his own zone. He had a ton of interest 2 years ago. He had a ton of interest this year, landed in Dallas, helped them on a heck of a run. I think that he might be one of the most significant signings that the team has made in free agency over the last number of years, maybe even in the Matthews-Marner era. I do think his defensive ability is that good. And then you look at Oliver Ekman-Larsson coming off a Stanley Cup championship, and you do wonder, the cap hit's not aggressive, and the 4-year term's not overtly aggressive either. You do just hope that you're getting a little bit more of the Florida Oliver Ekman-Larsson and not the Vancouver Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Clarkey.
Yeah, no, for sure. But my question for you, though, is you've always told me the Leafs need a stud defenseman to be able to even compete for the Stanley Cup. Is Chris Tanev the guy? Is he now considered the stud guy they can move forward with and build their defense around and take a run?
I don't think he's a guy that you would describe as a stud in the sense of when you use that term, you're typically, I think, talking about big game-changing defensemen. You're talking about guys like Drew Doughty, Alex Pietrangelo, John Carlson in his heyday, still a pretty good player. I don't think he's that. He's too one-dimensional to be a stud.
But it's the good dimension.
It's the dimension they need and severely lack.
Exactly.
I think that, and if you pair that with Oliver Ekman-Larsson being the Florida Ekman-Larsson, and you pair that up in turn with Yanni Hakanpää, who is a big, mean, snarly guy that I actually really like that deal. I thought that was one of the more underrated deals, a big, bruising guy who can really play defense.
But sorry, go ahead.
They added guys, really, Clarkey, that bring a lot of what they lack: size, meanness, and really quality defensive play.
No, I agree with that. Hakanpää, from what I know, has a bad knee. Like Steve Simmons said it, so it must be true. And as far as I know, they haven't announced the signing yet. So it was pending a physical, and they haven't officially announced it. I mean, Simmons wrote that this guy's like bone on bone in the knee and might never play again. So that one's still up in the air. But yeah, he's a big bruising defenseman as well. So, Treliving definitely took a different approach than we've seen in the past. In the Dubas era, he got bigger, he got tougher on defense, more defensive defenseman. So we'll see what happens. I think they're better. The question still is out there about Mitch Marner and what they're going to do there. It certainly sounds like they're rolling it back with the big four once again. And maybe that's not a bad thing. Thanks. Boy, I change my mind quickly, don't I? But maybe it's Craig Berube saying, give me a chance at this guy. Give me a chance running these guys through. And you never know, like come playoff time or come trade deadline time, maybe that's when they go to Mitch and say, Mitch, you know what? It's time to move on.
Yeah, I think that it could be a small combo of those things of Berube. I highly doubt that Craig Berube necessarily cares who the core of his team is. I think that he's just looking forward to potentially tackling a very unique challenge in North American sports. And within the lens of Canadian sports, probably the most unique challenge that we have in this country in terms of trying to urge a team on to success. Whether Mitch Marner's a part of that, I don't know that he necessarily cares, but I'm Craig Berube's not stupid. He's familiar with this player and knows the skill set he has, and we all do. It's just the thing that has plagued him and really all of these star players on the Leafs is their performance in the playoffs. There's been little spurts where a guy looks great for a game or two and then falls off and isn't there to answer the bell when the series gets down to the nitty gritty. Ultimately, I think that, like Aaron Karolnik said to us last week, they're in a tough spot with this guy. Like, he has full control over what his situation is for a year, for the rest of the year. Do they get to a point where they get to the trade deadline? Maybe they're sitting second or third in the Atlantic. Maybe they're sitting in first, and it would be hard to trade him then. But I think that Leaf fans are, as much as people like to bag on them for being overreactionary and a little out there, this is a smart fan base. I'm being nice to you, Clarkey. I'm on vacation. This is a smart fan base, and I think that even if the Leafs had like 100 points at the trade deadline and were on pace for like a record year and they traded Mitch Marner, even if he was on pace for like 120 points or something, I think most people would be in support of it because of what they've seen if it engendered a great return and further improved either their bottom six, where they smooth out a little bit more of the responsibility throughout that forward lineup, or a big potential other catch at D, particularly right D. They struck out and didn't manage to get Matt Roy, who I know they were into. My boys ended up signing him. I don't know. Yeah, the Mitch Marner thing, it's going to be one of the most talked about storylines in sports and certainly throughout the NHL for the next year, and it's for good reason.
I'm already excited about next year and free agent frenzy, because potentially the Leafs could have $21 million to spend with Tavares off the books and with Mitch off the books. So, I mean, let's see what happens this year. But this could be the toughest year of the past and of the future. If they can spend that money wisely next year and spend it in the ways they need to get help, they're going to have a lot of dough to spend next year with 2 big contracts coming off the books. And if Tavares resigns, we know it won't be anywhere near, not even half, I wouldn't think, of what he's making now.
No, it can't be. It can't be if they want to maximize the rest of this roster and maximize the rest of, I don't think it will be, but maximize the rest of what could be, as we've seen stranger things happen, the end of Austin Matthews' tenure as a Maple Leaf, continuing to sign those shorter term contracts. Again, I think that he will stay. He's probably the one guy you look at and go, he's probably a Maple Leaf for life. I think that Arizona's gone now, so that narrative's dead.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're
there's an expansion team. Maybe they'll come back.
Yeah, even then, I don't think that's something that would entice him. It really doesn't matter. No. He's a Toronto Maple Leaf, but they do need to try and maximize what remains the prime of his career, and to re-sign Tavares to anything north of $5.5 million would be.
I would even say less than that.
It would be a severe mistake, in my opinion. They
won't. I don't think they are going to.
I don't think so either, Clarkey. I think it'll be a 3-year deal at something like 4.5 or 5. And really, as much as it was an extremely exciting time for the team when he left the Islanders and came home and all that narrative and the pajama pants and all that stuff, as much as that was an exciting time, they do not owe this guy anything. They stitched the T on his sweater, and the only reason that I firmly believe that they did that was because of that little incident that Austin Matthews had. They don't owe this guy anything. As much as I'm never going to say he doesn't play hard or try. Obviously. Yeah. As much as that's the case, there has been no success to speak of.
No.
And he had that hot first year, has not been able to replicate that, and they just don't owe this guy anything. They don't owe any of these guys anything.
No.
And that's been part of the problem.
Yeah, no, for sure. And the interesting part is, after saying that this could be the most difficult time, is there's 2 big cogs in the wheel here who are playing for a contract next year. And we've seen it time and time and time again, how guys can all of a sudden rise up and be unbelievable in contract years. So that's the one thing they have going for them, is these 2 guys are fighting for a contract. Because on the open market, we know for a fact Willie Nylander would not have got what the Leafs gave him. And Mitch Marner, unless he has an unbelievable year and an unbelievable playoff, won't be getting what he's making this year. So he has to step up and he has to perform big time this year in a contract year.
I completely agree, Clarkey. And here's the thing too, right? You look around at other teams and the rates that some of their star players have decided to stay at. And our friends over at the Steve Dangle Podcast Network had a really good video breakdown on this about a week ago, where they were basically piling the math together, and that core 4, when you disclude Reilly from it, that core 4 making well over, I believe, $44 million. And the next closest team that had 4 players like that was Colorado, and they're paying their big 4 guys $33 million, or just shy of it, I believe. Like, this formula doesn't work. So I agree. Like, these guys are playing for contracts. Marner, obviously, in particular, because Tavares, we all know, just based on his age and slowing down, he's not going to command giant dollars.
No.
For Mitch marner, if he wants, whether it's the Maple Leafs again, who knows, or another team, to pay him north of $12.5 million, he's going to have to put up some historic numbers. He's going to probably have to have 120 points. I mean, when you consider that Sam Reinhart, who many people thought was potentially heading, or in the very least was going to test free agency, and he re-signs with the Stanley Cup champions for $8.635 after a 57-goal regular season, and tacking on 10 more, including the cup-winning goal in Game 7 there. When you look around and look at that, if I'm a general manager sitting down with Mitch Marner, I'm going, how do you expect me to pay you this amount of money when you've never won a big individual award? You've never led the league in scoring. Why should I be ponying up $13+ million for you when you've never had any success? Oh, by the way, you went 18 games once in the playoffs without scoring a goal.
Yeah.
I don't think so, Mitch.
No, that's what I mean. So we'll see how these guys step up and go from there. I'm going to get into more Leaf stuff with Doigy, but I want your opinion on around the league and winners and losers on Free Agent Frenzy Day. Your Caps had a pretty good day, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even necessarily want to start there, but I mean,
let's start there.
I'll be honest, I haven't been more excited for a regular season to get started since the year after the Cup run, where the weight was finally off the franchise's shoulders, my shoulders as well, and the tattoo went on. I'm so excited. What a job. And consider that a week and a half ago, if not 2 weeks ago, when Brian McClellan made that very controversial, I'll call it, trade, where he gets out from under Darcy Kemper, but takes on that mammoth contract for Pierre-Luc Dubois, a guy who continues to befuddle coaches and fans around the league. This now his fourth team. When you consider I would almost describe it as vitriol in the Washington market following that move, and you flip-flop it with what he did on July 1st. I mean, we're talking about a serious character turn here. Matt Roy, one of the most sought-after right-handed defensive defensemen out there, signs him to an excellent contract, makes a swap for a guy who's got oodles of still untapped potential, I think, in Jacob Chychrun. And I am drooling at the prospect of left-handed Jacob Chychrun playing on a top pair with right-handed Stanley Cup champion John Carlson, Matt Roy potentially playing with your buddy Rasmus Sandin, and then a third pair of maybe Trevor Van Riemsdyk and the young Martin Fehervary. I'm so excited about this decor, and Pierre-Luc Dubois has a real opportunity here. You talk about a character turn for Brian McClellan, the general manager. If Pierre-Luc Dubois can wake himself up, have like even a 70-ish point season, and be the guy who's the trigger man passing to Ovechkin when he breaks Gretzky's record, Pierre-Luc Dubois is going to have a massive reputation swing. This guy has a real potential to be a big factor in history.
And that's the word I was going to use. The potential's there. The guy's still young. The potential's there that this guy can turn it around.
Clark, he's big. That year in the bubble when the Blue Jackets, I was struggling to think of what team it was on. When the Blue Jackets put the
Toronto,
Leafs
probably.
He was a force. He was a monster. I believe he had 8 points in that 5-game series, was winning draws, throwing that 6'3" frame around. Like, this is a guy with a big frame who can skate and has good hands. Like, this dude has real potential to have some fireworks here. And if he's the guy potentially that's on the ice, let alone maybe assisting on the record-breaking goal for Ovi, he'll go down in history as one of the more interesting reclamation projects in NHL history.
Yeah. You can get into your winners and losers here, but I want to lead you into the Tampa situation with Stamkos and him taking his talents to Nashville. What did you make of all that?
What a bizarre landscape changing move that was. And I don't have a horse in the race, if you will, when it comes to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Obviously, they've been, this has all been bookmarked by incredible individual success by Stammer and the back-to-back cups and 3 straight cup final runs. It is odd to see a player of his stature leave a franchise like that. And the fact that there are rumors that the Lightning couldn't just find an extra 1.5, maybe $2 million to get him to stay on a 5 or 6 year deal, it's surprising. Like, when moves like this happen, it's shocking. It's going to be completely bizarre seeing him in Nashville yellow. But that does lead me into obviously Barry Trotz's Nashville Predators. Heck of a coach Barry Trotz was. He'll go into the Hall of Fame just on his coaching resume. Boy, what great work as a general manager to bring in cup championship pedigree to a team that has quickly retooled in Nashville and was a surprise playoff team. They ink up Saros. He's staying. Now the question is, does Askarov go, the young talented Russian right-handed catching goaltender? They add Stamkos. They bring in Marchessault. I mean, just an incredible Brady Shea to shore up that back end. What an incredible day. Few hours by Barry Trotz and the Nashville Predators, but Steven Stamkos leaving the Lightning. It's something that I don't know that the franchise can necessarily recover from in the next couple of years. Still a very good roster. Like, let's not take anything away from Jake Gensel, who's a multiple cup winner himself, but it's Steven Stamkos. Like, it's just not going to feel the same. And many people have talked about it. I'm sure you picked up on it, Clarkey. It massively changes the way they set that beautiful power play up, because that right-handed trigger is now gone. Jake Gensel's a lefty, so they're going to have to potentially completely rethink how they set that power play up. But then they go out and they sign Hedman to a team-friendly deal, and he's still one of the best defensemen in the league. Kucherov's not going anywhere. Braden Point's a freak. Cirelli, I still love their team,
and they trade Sergachev too.
And Sergachev, who's now a scarily injury-prone yet still very good player. Some big changes over there. And speaking of, Sergachev getting moved out, I think that Seattle did a great job in getting Montour to come over and add to a speedy young defense core over there. Shane Wright should be a full-time NHLer next year, and they continue to look at the progress of Matty Beniers after a sophomore slump. I like what Seattle did just in getting Montour in there. The Leafs are clear winners as well. You just have to say it. As much as people in the hockey world and fans of other teams don't want to admit it, they are great. I actually really liked what Montreal did in not spending just to spend and sign a bunch of guys to try and jump to the next level, and getting Juraj Slafkovsky to sign what could end up looking like a very team-friendly deal. If his progression continues the way we saw him play last year, and he continues to get even better, keep in mind he's 20 years old, by the time that contract ages out, we might be talking about a Leon Draisaitl-esque type of bargain. I'm not saying he turns into Leon Draisaitl. I'm just saying Leon Draisaitl's playing on an $8.5 million deal. We could look back at the end of the Slafkovsky one and say, wow, what a bargain by the Montreal Canadiens.
I want to touch upon tampering, because I think it's obvious. It's obvious. Like, the Leafs have to give up a 7th rounder and a player who expiring contract to be able to, to Dallas, to be able to, negotiate for Chris Tanev. But we heard at 10 o'clock on the morning of July 1st that Bertuzzi was going. He was going to Chicago. They had the exact deal that he signed for. I don't know. I heard Chris Johnson on his podcast saying the league doesn't care. It's all good. There wasn't enough time to really allow these teams to make trades after the season ended, because it ended too soon. Well, that's the NHL's fault. It's not anyone else's fault. But why should the Leafs have to give up a draft pick to be able to negotiate in good faith? But we knew Bertuzzi was leaving at 10 a.m. on the morning of July 1st. I don't get it.
I think you might be trying to read a little too far into this and make it a Leafs conspiracy theory. I know what you're saying.
I wouldn't do that.
I think that we would be remiss if we didn't think that the Leafs were already talking to Tanev ahead of that deal being done. And also it could have been a thing where Dallas, who bought Ryan Suter out, was potentially teeing up a deal to try and keep Chris Tanev, and the Leafs wanted to prevent that from happening. So that could also be the situation. It's hard to say. I don't know, Clarkey. I mean, this is sports, isn't it? It happens in the NBA constantly. Paul George immediately is out the door. Looks good on Kawhi, doesn't it? And it's happening in the NHL too. I don't know how to quote unquote stop it. I don't think that there's an appetite to stop it. It's much like the LTIR thing. Everybody's doing it. So either we all get to do it or no one gets to do it. And I don't think there's an appetite from the general managers to go, no, none of us can do it.
Yeah, they're out to screw the Leafs, no doubt. Okay, finally, before we let you go, and I, as you've noticed, I've taken over the host role today after you did the little opening, which is fine. Our good buddy Dave Poulin up in Ottawa, they seem to be really moving up there, and they got a great goaltender now, so it's tough. The Atlantic Division, as we know, is a tough one, but Ottawa's making some strides up there with some of their acquisitions in the last two weeks or so.
Yeah, and they desperately need to take a step in the right direction here. And, they cannot continue to languish at the bottom of the division. I mean, I'm not even saying that making the playoffs is necessarily a must. It does kind of feel that way, though. In the very least, like, they got to be pushing for a playoff spot. Like, if they're 15 points out by the time the trade deadline rolls around, that's a complete failure. Like, you look at the talent that's on this team, and I love Brady Tkachuk. I love Timmy Stu. They've got some good young players there. I think with Chychrun moving out, it probably negates Shabbat going anywhere. So they have some guys there that have a ton of talent that really need to, A, be healthy, or B, really rebound and make good on the talent and promise that they have. But they need to do it as a team. You look at their lineup, and there's been some guys that have had some really nice individual success. Tim Stützle, very much at the forefront of that. But as a team, they continue to fail to gel. And they got a big question mark, too, on that roster with Josh Norris. Is this guy healthy? You worry about the longevity potentially of his career. If he can be healthy, we've seen the promise that this guy has. But if he can't, does it turn into a situation where he's an LTIR stash and you can't get an asset back for a really talented player? Or is a team out there willing to take a sniff at him, albeit for probably a lesser price than what his talent would suggest he would get? Is someone willing to take a sniff and potentially send them back a winger who can potentially help them score a bit? I think that ultimately, though, their problem is very similar to the Leafs, although much more pronounced. They can't play defense. And Linus Ullmark, for as exciting as that is, hey, the guy's got a Vezina trophy on his mantelpiece. For as good as he is, if they play defense like they did last year, his numbers aren't going to look very good. You're not going to be looking at 920 save percentages for this guy.
And let's remember, he played one playoff game and the Leafs beat him.
Yes, absolutely. Jeremy Swayman took over. And speaking of Boston did really well. Nikita Zadorov took way less than what people thought he'd get on the open market to go there. I think they ended up doing really, really well, too. Love what Detroit did. And Patrick Kane comes back, and that's all well and good, but they didn't really make their team better. People thought, Stamkos, he'll go join Stevie Y, and there were whispers about that. Don't love what they did. The Rangers, with all this.
Well, what's going on with Trouba? What's going on there?
Man, what a strange thing. And again, another example of a team being hamstrung, potentially, if you believe the rumors, by a limited no move and no trade list. It's his right to stay. And, he's the captain of the team, but I didn't really love what they've done so far. And same with the Islanders. Like, you're looking in that New York, metropolitan area, and outside of New Jersey are the ones making all the noise, not the mighty Rangers and the middling, I'll call them, Islanders. Those are some of my losers for sure.
And what about the left coast there, where you are today? Is your buddy a Canucks fan? What does he think's going on out there?
The Krellins are Canucks fans.
Yeah.
I locked that in. The jerseys are hanging up in a closet not far from me.
So what's his take?
I think people out here, including the Krellins, are excited about next year. Like, getting Jake DeBrusk over here is a nice move for them. I wouldn't call them winners or losers. They look kind of the same to me. Losing Zadorov, it's a bummer, but they're going to be able to, hopefully lean on a healthy full season from Demko. Because I think if Demko was in net, not that Shilov's played badly, but I think if Demko's in net, we maybe see a different story in the playoffs. And Jake DeBrusk is a guy who's a really gritty player that I think Canucks fans are going to fall in love with. He can crash and bang. He can score. I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up with 20 plus goals, potentially playing with Pettersson. I think people out here on the West Coast, Best Coast are excited about the next Canucks season.
Very good. Well, buddy, listen, you go and enjoy your vacation. But before you go, I do have to, I don't know if you have one or not, but I'm just going to throw on my Couch Potato hat here. And I have a couch potato for you this week. And I know we always say we can't name each other, but blah, blah, blah. I can do whatever I want because I'm hosting this week. Ryan Drury celebrated number 33. Is that right?
Yes, 33.
Number 33 this week. Happy birthday, buddy. I didn't do it on Facebook because I wanted to do it in person and, well, so to speak, Zoom in person, and wish you a happy birthday. But I have a question for you. We've been trying to get a video to roll in here. Adam's going to continue to try, and we'll get it hopefully by the time we edit the show. But I watched a video that your girlfriend Kate posted of you eating something. And there wasn't a lot of explanation. It looked like a little candy. That's what it looked like. I'm sure it wasn't, from the, dispensary. But anyway, what was it that you were eating and what the heck happened to you?
Yeah, so a bit of backstory. A couple of years ago, actually, with my friends, the Krellins here in Vancouver, we thought it would be fun one night to take the Packy One Chip Challenge, the Packy Taco Chips, which are illegal in many places now for good reason. The One Chip Challenge, the hottest chip in the world. We ate one, had a real bad time, and it's the hottest thing I've ever eaten still to this day. So the kids thought it would be fun to get me something really hot for my birthday. They figured he'll really enjoy this. He eats spicy food. So they managed to track down in a random grocery store in Greater Sudbury the world's allegedly hottest gummy bear, 9 million Scoville. And I took a look at it and thought, there's no way this thing's that hot. They found it in a grocery store. It can't be that lethal.
Really?
Well, you can see on the video evidence, it's pretty rough. It was instantly hot and unpleasant. I did beat the challenge, though. It was 10 minutes without any milk, water, or relief. I just had to kind of stomp it out outside. It was hot. It was unpleasant. It wasn't as bad as the chip. I think the chip was twice, if not 3 times as bad. Wow. But it was hot, and the kids thought it was funny. So I really did it for them, and I regret doing so.
I don't really want to eat it, I'll be honest. Like, it's probably going to be a real bummer.
You don't have to take the whole thing, bro. You don't want to.
You can take like a small bite.
It says put the full thing in.
That's
instructions are more like guidelines.
okay. Then if you're down for the.
It doesn't smell bad.
Does it smell like a gummy bear? Can I smell it? Can I smell
touch
it? Sniff, sniff. It smells like pasta.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explosive pasta.
Yeah. Smoke comes in.
Instantly sucks. That sucks.
Like taste-wise, or?
Probably not even.
Where's your water bottle, by the way?
And it's pretty hot.
Yeah, just heat, not even.
Can I read that? That sucks.
You have to eat.
I don't think it tastes good at all.
Where's your water, babe? Or a glass of milk or something.
It is a bummer, I'll be honest.
Can it make your mouth go fired?
Simone, is Ryan gonna spit fire?
Yeah.
Dragon for real?
Where's your water, babe? Like, start bringing it down.
I'll be honest, like, it's not as bad as the chip, but it's pretty close.
Well, very good. Of course, the Couch Potato brought to you by Conway Furniture, and our buddy Phil Maines should fill us in on where that is.
Conway Furniture, Highway 86, just east of Listowel.
There we go. Where HST and delivery is always included, right?
That's right, sir.
That's right. Do you have one or no?
I would love to. You know what? Actually, I do have a couch potato.
Let's do it.
On my birthday, I was given the great pleasure by the Krellins, who I'm staying out here with on the Best Coast. They took me to my very first minor league baseball game. We went and watched the Toronto Blue Jays High A affiliate Vancouver Canadians. Unfortunately, they lost, although they were on a 6-game win streak to Everett. when we attended. Saw a couple home runs. It's always exciting. And it was a tremendously fun time. My couch potato is the Vancouver Canadians. Great time. If you're ever out here, get over to Nat Williams Stadium at Rogers Field. It's a great time. It's extremely cheap. And I would suggest getting a yard dog, 3 feet of hot dog power. We piled one down yesterday. It was a great time.
Well, there you go. The Vancouver Canadians. Now, I'd imagine there wasn't a lot of talent on that team, or they would be up with the Blue Jays right now.
There were some pretty good-looking little players. Esteban Machado was good. I was impressed by Esteban Machado. You never know. Hey,
you never know.
Some current Blue Jays played for the franchise, and Vladdy Jr. started there too. You never know.
You never know. Okay, buddy, you enjoy the rest of the time out in Vancouver, and I'm going to take over from here as we wrap up this segment. But Ian Doig, I'd love to get his opinions on the Leafs all the time we can. So he's coming up next as Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. I'm Clarkey. I'm the host of this show today. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Instigating with Clarkey and Drury. No, it's now Clarkey and Doigy. As Ian Doig from the Ian Doig Golf Academy joins me for the rest of the show this week. Doigy, how are things going?
I'm good, Clarkey. Everything's looking good.
Are you playing golf? Like, how's that going?
Well, yeah, pretty good. I had a little one-day thing the other day that match play, so more like tennis, 1-against-1, and I beat a young kid. Played pretty good.
Oh, that must have felt good.
Yeah, 26-year-old, and took him down after 4 and 3 through 15 holes, and then I took one of my juniors that I coached to the Ontario PGA Pro Junior just on Tuesday at Wooden Sticks, and we shot a better ball 68, and we finished I think 7th out of 36 or 37 teams. So it was a fun day.
Now, Wooden Sticks is one of my favorite courses. Anything changed there in the last 10 years? It's probably been at least 10 years since I played there.
No, the golf course is just the way it was when it opened up in 2002 or something like that. It's interesting because they have a lot of holes that are inspired by holes that are on championship golf courses. Yeah. The holes that are their own holes that they just use the terrain there are some of the best holes on the golf course. It's actually a very nice golf course, fun to play. Yeah.
I came close. I've come close twice to a hole in one. And once one was there at the postage stamp hole, the little wee green. And I was like 2 or 3 inches away. The other one I had was at Nobleton Lakes. And I just hit it, and you could see it sort of make a weird turn around the hole, and there was a marshal down at the hole. And when we got down there, he goes, that thing just lit the cup, man. And I'm like, thanks for that. So come close twice. And you know what? I played Ironwood in Exeter on Canada Day, and I put one within 3 feet, so I was happy with that. I got 2 birdies in 9 holes.
Oh, look at you
go. I'm not telling you how the other 7 holes went.
Oh, and I was just about to say it must be the coach, but now saying that,
exactly. I texted you mid round. I texted you.
Yes, you did.
And I said, Doigy, I'm pulling everything. Like I'm just pulling everything. I can't stop pulling the ball.
So your upper body's overtaking the lower body in the start of the downswing. So you get the club over what we call over the top. But you're athletic enough that you can square the club face up. So what's happening is the path of the club is from outside in, but with a square club face. So it's just a pull.
Outside in.
Yeah. So if we were to look at the golf ball for you as a left-hander, you're hitting the golf ball at about 8 o'clock.
See, and I know the inside quadrant is where I want to hit it.
Yeah. You want to hit it at 4 or 5 o'clock, right? From the inside.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not. Can't be. Not if you're pulling it.
I got to go to my buddy's simulator and hit some balls and see what's going on. Yeah, that maybe straighten me out. Anyway, let's talk about Leafs.
Before you go there, you brought up the postage stamp, which is Troon. Yeah. And the Open Championship is coming up at Troon.
At Troon. Okay.
Troon. So we had to throw that in there. And then on top of that, a very good friend of mine, Todd Hamilton, won the Open at Troon in 2004. He beat Ernie Els in a playoff. So,
you should get him on the show next week.
You know what? That might be a good idea.
It would be a good idea.
If I was thinking about it, I would have brought a picture on of me drinking out of the claret jug in his kitchen not long
Next
after he
week.
won it.
Next
we'll
week.
We'll bring it on for next week.
Next week.
Yeah.
There you go.
So-
You're under the gun for next week.
Okay.
Leafs. Free agency is come and gone. The draft is come and gone. Let's start with the goaltending. Let's start back where the most important position is and work our way out. They signed Wall to an extension and they signed Stolarz to a deal. What do you think of the goaltending? Is it better than last year? Or are we going to be like a little nervous all year?
I think it's about the same as last year, depending on what Wall does. If he stays healthy, I think he's a good goaltender. My concern is that he has this propensity to get hurt all the time, right? And so that becomes a problem. Now, Stolarz, though, has played quite well in the last year or so. So is he a really, really good backup? We'll have to wait and see. The one that I find interesting is Murray. We sign him pretty cheap, but if he's come back from his, isn't injured, he might end up being the guy that kind of takes over the net if he gets back to his old self.
Okay, that might be the case, but I think we're in trouble if that's the case, because that means Wall is hurt or not playing well, and Stolarz isn't playing well. And Matt Murray, you know what, like, he's a guy that they'll have to clear waivers to be sent down, like Martin Jones was last year. Yeah. So I can't see a lot of teams taking a chance on him. No. So that's probably what the deal was there. They're not going to they can't carry 3 goalies. They don't have the cap space.
No, I don't think so either. Now, maybe my heart's pulling a little bit because he's a good Thunder Bay boy and, family connection to Thunder Bay and all. So,
Okay. So goaltending even, defense, a big signing with Chris Tanev. He's the big news of the free agent pool for the Leafs anyway, and probably one of the biggest defensemen to go in this year's free agent frenzy. How much better do you think the D is today than it was 2 weeks ago or at the end of the season?
Well, if you just look at Tanev, I would say it's a bit of an upgrade. We have to look at his age, but he's a shot blocking defenseman. He is a shutdown defenseman. I like the way he plays. I like all of that. But if it's just him that we're looking at, yeah, we're better. But are we significantly better? I don't think so. What I like, though, is Ekman Larsson being signed in as well. And then, who knows what's going to happen with, is it Maris, the big kid that they signed for 1 year? He's 6'6", 220 pounds. Yep. He's been injured coming out of Minnesota. Yep. I kind of like the idea that he could kind of slide in there if the knee isn't too bad, right? And then all of a sudden, we've got that Zdeno Chara type player that's standing in front of the net, and hopefully he's going to move some bodies out of front. That's always been my problem with the way our defense have played. They don't move the bodies out of the front of the net, and I think between these 3 guys, that will happen.
And your buddy Morgan Reilly now finally has a right shot D if they pair him up with Tanev. He really has never had that stud defenseman back there with him. It may make Morgan Reilly a little more comfortable and a little better. And we're both hoping that's the case.
I totally agree. I think what's going to happen is Morgan Reilly's played the last few years feeling like he is the guy, and everything, all the defensive stuff that was going on was all on him. And I think these signings are going to allow him to play a little freer, not worry about it so much, and it's going to cut back on his ice time. So now he's going to be more fresh. He's not going to have to play 22, 23 minutes a game anymore. Get him back down around 18, 19 minutes, and I think he's going to have a great season. I really do. And I'm not a fan, but I still think that he's going to play pretty good.
I know you're not a fan. And the other guy who they signed, pending physical, is Yanni Hakanpää, and he's a big 6'6", 6'7" defenseman who can throw the weight around as well. Like Treliving, if he didn't do anything, he has made this defense bigger and tougher to play against.
Yeah, 100%, right? And you like those plays, and he talked about that. What I actually see a little bit is, if I can steal the line from Brian Burke, that there might be a little more truculence in the team now, right, in the defense. So,
Mhm,
you know, I'm happy about that. It's the one thing I've said for the last 5 or 6 years is that we're too damn soft in the defensive zone.
mhm.
And hopefully that's going to change. I think between the players and Berube being the coach, I think that's going to turn the corner for the Leafs.
It'll be interesting to see when they play the Devils in the finals, in the Eastern Conference Finals, if Sheldon Keefe beats the Leafs. You know, it'll just be our luck, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, let's move up front. Well, you know what? One more thing. Oliver Ekman-Larsson as well.
Yeah.
Nice veteran presence back there. Ryan and I talked a little bit about it, but the guy who seems to be on the outside looking in is Connor Timmins. Like, this guy was, I wouldn't say highly touted, but he was a guy who they thought they could rely on when they signed him to that deal a year ago for over $1 million. I don't see him getting in the lineup. I really don't.
Yeah, either do I. I think they're going to give Liljegren a long rope, right? And you throw in the other guys. I mean, Timmins is going to be hard pressed to get himself into the lineup. Now, that said, he came through camp last year with flying colors, looked like he was just going to step in and take off, got injured, and then never really found his footing again after that. So who knows what's going to happen this year? Like, if he comes through camp the same way, you're going to have to at least give him a shot. Right?
Yeah. And as you mentioned, they re-signed Liljegren, extended him $3 million deal. People are saying it's a little bit too much. We'll find out. And he's another guy who could be used as trade bait along the way here.
Right.
He could have some value. Jake McCabe and Simone Benoit round out the D. That's two solid defensive defensemen as well. But I like the way this defense is now shaped up.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm a big fan of Benoit. You know, and I'm good on McCabe too, but I really like the way Benoit has played in the last year.
And he came out of nowhere. That's the neat thing about him. It's finally, you know, a guy that they've stumbled upon.
Yeah.
And we haven't said that very often on the defensive side.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely. And you know, one of these other signings may be the same thing. Maybe we end up stumbling upon another guy that kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, let's move up front. The big news, I guess, is Mitch Marner still a Leaf now. It's probably not the biggest news. But Max Domi re-signs, and not a bad deal. You know, 3.75 over the next 4 years. Could be a good deal moving forward. And they lose Bertuzzi, though, to Chicago. What are your thoughts on those two moves?
Well, we knew they weren't going to keep both of them. So then it was a toss-up to, okay, which one's going to stay? I could have went either way on them, but I like the idea of Domi staying because of the history. You know what, with Ty playing most of his career here and the name carrying on the name.
I like it too, but is that wise to think that?
Well, I don't know if it is.
You know
or
what
not.
I'm saying?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But you know what? It's entertainment. He's entertaining. I really like the way he played in the last half of the season last year. And let's not kid ourselves. Playing in Toronto was a hard market to play in. And here's a young kid that grew up hanging around that dressing room and everything. And it took him half the season to get his feet underneath him and start to play. And I thought that he played nicely in the last half of the season. So if he carries that forward right off the start into next year, I think the next 4 years with Domi in the lineup could be very good for us.
So Bertuzzi was in the top 6. Who's going to fill that role of Bertuzzi in the top 6, do you think?
Well, I think they have to give Nick Robertson a really good chance here.
He's asked to be traded. I wanted to get into that as well.
Yeah, and I know that he's asked to be traded, but I think he fits. I think he's a good player. I think he just hasn't been given the right opportunity. I'd like to see that. But then I look at Cowan and Minton, both coming out of junior. You know, I think they're going to surprise us at camp. I really do.
Well, kids are you know, debuting in the NHL a lot earlier than they ever have. And if Easton Cowan plays the way he did in London last year, I don't see any reason why he couldn't be a contributor. But the problem is, and this is, I think, half the problem with Nick Robertson is he was put in in not the role that he should be put in.
Right.
Put in as a checking forward. He's not that player.
Yeah.
You can't make a mountain out of a molehill. Like,
you know what?
I'd like to see.
He's got a goal scoring touch. I mean, all you have to do is look at
does
every game that after he was sat out, he'd come back the next game and he scored in every one of them basically, right? And that because that's who he is.
Yeah.
And Sheldon Keefe was trying to use him as a defensive forward. Well, I'm sorry. He's not a defensive forward. Let him go score goals. Like, just let him loose.
I'm surprised he did come out publicly and ask for this trade. He is a pending, or he is an RFA, not a pending. He is an RFA, so he has to sign a deal. And I can see the Leafs playing a little hardball with him. I don't know if he'll even be in the lineup come September. We'll have to see how that plays out.
I would tend to agree with you, but it didn't surprise me at all that he finally came out and said, because look, he's been around for 3.5 years and he hasn't got the shot that he needed.
But yeah, he's still young. He's very, very young. He's had a lot of injuries. He had a broken leg. Like he's had a tough go. And you're right. Like he has that potential to be a real good goal scoring forward. The other guy I'm looking at maybe to make another stride this year, who came out of the system last year, is Bobby McMahon. I think he could be a nice replacement for Bertuzzi as well. Not that he didn't play in the top 6, because he did last year, but he kept going back and forth between that 6 and 9. I think he has a really good chance of being a top 6 forward this year.
Yeah, I agree. I look at him and I felt like that the coach didn't utilize him correctly.
You hated him, eh? He didn't take long to get another job.
No, he didn't, because of look at his record and everything. But it'll be interesting to see what he does over there, right? But I just don't think he utilized our players correctly, and that's part of it. And but I think again, with Berube in there, they're going to play a different style of hockey for sure, and I think that will allow Nick Robertson and McCann and potentially Minton and Cowan to do a little bit more, especially offensively. So I kind of like it.
So as this airs on Whiteman this week on July the 5th, Mitch Marner is still a Leaf. Do you think he's going to play out the season? Will he get traded at the trade deadline? And does he re-sign next year?
Well, personally, I would love to see him get traded for a couple of reasons. I just don't think he has the style of play to play hard hockey in the playoffs. He's shown that year after year. Although if you look at his points in playoff games, his points have accumulated, right? So he has a lot of points, but it's just not, he can't score. He doesn't go to the dirty areas of the rink. He doesn't go in the corners, he doesn't park himself in front of the net. And that's the type of player you need in the playoffs, a la the Tkachuk boys. I mean, they just park themselves there and they get slashed to hell, but they don't move. And if we can trade him, if he agrees to a trade, I think what we could get back for him, plus opening up all that cap space, then you can go shopping, right? Like then I think that it opens up an awful lot of avenues for Toronto to make themselves better. Does he become selfish and want to stay? Who knows? I mean, I can't get in his head, but that's a possibility, right?
Well, as much as I would love to say there's no way that they're going to re-sign him for the same ticket he has this year, you never know. But as I mentioned to Ryan in the first half of the show today, next free agent frenzy, this team could be looking at nearly $22 million to spend after 2 guys are gone, Tavares and Marner. Tavares, I would think he'll sign a more team-friendly deal. Ryan threw out like $5 million. I would think it might be closer to 3, but who knows? It all depends on what kind of season he has, obviously. Yeah. But that's a lot of money. And even if he doesn't get traded, like even if he says, no, I don't want to get traded, the cap space alone is a trade. And a
100%.
100%. If you don't want to get traded, fine. You're on your own. Go sign somewhere. But I just think that this, as I said to Ryan, this could be a tough year just because of the cap situation. But you got 2 guys who are trying to prove themselves, 2 of your elite 4 players, really trying to play for a contract next year. And we've seen it time and time again where those guys really rise up above the rest. So maybe maybe it could be a special year. I'm hoping, Doig.
Well,
Just
yeah,
hoping.
aren't we all? I've been hoping since 1967.
Exactly.
But yeah, and you're right. I mean, maybe the two of them play unbelievably. Now look at Tavares. He's getting older. Let's not kid ourselves. He's starting
For
to
sure.
slow down. He's
There's
starting to
no
slow
doubt.
down.
Yeah.
Would I bring him back after this year, back into the next year and that, or 2 years after that, at a team friendly 2.5 to 3 million in a heartbeat? Now that's maybe a stretch, but
No, you never know.
he wants to finish his career in Toronto, I think, right?
Yeah.
And we know he doesn't want to retire. So
Mhm.
would he be willing to do that? I think he would be. So now all of a sudden you save all that money, let Marner walk,
Exactly.
take all that money.
You got
and
18 million to spend.
and then we're in the driver's seat. We could go out and get almost whoever we need to get. And at that point in time, we've had another good year to figure out, if we don't go all the way, we figured out, okay, who do we jettison out of here and who do we bring in? That said, I still think with the thought that Tavares may or may not re-sign, the thought that Marner may be gone, that opens up for the Nick Robertson, for the Minton, and for the Cowan to step in and maybe have great years themselves, because they're trying to prove themselves, because they want to make that big money when it's available.
Yeah, no doubt. We'll see how it all shakes down. Finally, before we let you go, does John Tavares give up the C, or does he do that after the season?
I think the rumor that is out there that they're asking him to give it up or they're thinking of taking it away from him, I think is a big mistake. He's the leader in there. Let him play out the season, and then if he doesn't come back, really easy to hand it over to Matthews or whomever you want,
Could be
Morgan Reilly, whoever it is, right?
Yeah.
But don't take it away from him. He's been the leader there for the last 5 years. Just leave him alone. He's a good leader.
Yeah, but
I think it would hurt in the dressing room if you took it away from him.
Having said that, we don't know. We're not in the dressing room, and he may say to them, you know what? Let someone else take it. Like, I've done my due.
Yeah. It's a big job.
It is a big job. You have to face that media every day.
Yeah.
It is a big job, and he may just want to play and not have to worry about that anyway.
Well, and that's a great thought. Like maybe the weight of having to deal with the media is slowing him down a little bit. But who else is ready? Who are you going to give it to?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if Austin wants that job.
I think he probably does.
Well, is he ready though?
He should be. If he's not ready now, he's never going to be ready.
Right. Well, maybe you give it to Tanev.
maybe. But
right.
Anyway,
veteran.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Right. So.
Well, buddy, thank you. I think we're on to something here. We can really eliminate Drury altogether and just rename the show. We'll get some new graphics done. Instigating with Clarkey and Doig moving forward. Ryan's out west. Celebrating his 33rd birthday, so he's in Vancouver at a buddy's place. So thanks for coming on, and I just wanted to mention as well that this show, of course, is brought to you by Larry Hudson's Chevrolet Buick GMC in Listowel, 1000 Wallace Avenue North. Hudson's has it, and somebody came by for a special test drive in a Canyon Denali this week.
Yes, I did, and I really liked it. It is a pretty special truck, and depending on whether my bride and I get the opportunity to go to Australia for a couple months, that's out there. It's on the table. We're looking at it to play in on the Legends Tour. If we go to Australia, I'm going to wait until next year to get the new truck. But if we don't go to Australia, I'll be getting that new truck this fall.
Very good. Well, Doigie, thank you. And we'll save that truck for it. No, we can't save it. It's still available. Someone else can come and buy it, but we'll get you a similar one. Anyway, thanks again for joining us this week. And Adam, if you can put in the slide so I remember what to say. There we go. Instigating with Clarkey and Drury's on every Friday at 8 p.m. on Whiteman TV Channel 6. It debuts on our YouTube channel at 9 p.m. Of course, follow us on our socials, Instagram at Instigating Pod and Twitter, or you can call it X at Instigating Pod. I'm Chris Clark. That's Ian Doig. Thanks again, Doigie, for joining us, and we will see you next week here on Instigating with Clarkey and Drury.
See you guys.